Oh, and in this chapter we're going to be looking at installing Terraform. We're going to install it, we're going to set it up, we're going to test out building some basic VMs, just using some Terraform starter code to give you an idea of how that works. Then we're going to move on to doing it with variables, and then on to creating a web server, just a very basic web server. It's going to set up some SSH keys and then install the service. So if you haven't already done it, go back, look at the previous chapters, about creating a VM, setting up the IAM user, then setting up the server correctly, then setting up Packer so it works to create the IAM that we're going to use today. And in this video, we're going to put all that together and do some stuff with Terraform. Okay, so straight in. I make updates all the time. So if you're coming in later, then this will look a lot more busy. There'll be a lot more information here. But today I've just added this Terraform folder. So I'm going to go into DevOps Tools course. So this is on your Ansible control node, or your control node. And I'm just going to do a git pull, because I update this all the time. Right, so yeah, just a couple of updates on the README. So let's go into the Terraform, cut and paste from here. So there's a README file inside the directory that has all the instructions that we're going to be following today, the step 1, 2 and 3, and then we're going to make sure that we've destroyed all of our AWS VMs. So it's very simple, similar to the Packer stuff. We are just going to do the install, move the Terraform over to user bin local or user local bin, and then make it available to everyone on our server. So we've gone into the thing. Now we're going to download this directory. Oh, actually want it in the next one. Okay, so going to the Terraform directory. That's the README that we're looking at now, and from here we're just going to download the zip file from HashiCorp. There it is. Now I've already installed unzip, so we're just going to run the unzip on the file. Okay, don't actually need sudo for this. Okay, see that it's there. So let's just remove the zip file. Quickly test if it's running, so /terraform. Yep, so these are the commands running. It's a binary. Let's move that binary to user local bin. So that makes it available for everybody. So now if we just run Terraform, we get the same output. And again, that's because there's a path variable and user local bin is in that environment variable. I explained that in the Packer video. Right, so we know that's working. So the next step is to download the Terraform first Git repo. So it's another repo I've got. It's separate to the DevOps course code, but we can just download it into this directory. And that creates a Terraform first directory. So we go into Terraform first, and we can see there's another README Terraform code. Going to Terraform code, and from here, there's a first VM, Nginx, and variables. So let's go into first VM, cd first VM, and it's just one simple instance.tf file. So if we cat that file, in fact I'm going to VI it because I need to edit it. So VI instance, maybe VI or nano, whatever your preference is. So what we've got here is a provider. So this tells Terraform that we're talking to AWS, and then we've got a region here of a US2, which is the one that I'm using for this course. If it's different, then please update it to be the one that you're using. And then we're going to start a resource. We're going to build an instance type with this AMI, and that's it. So if we come here, I'm just going to delete this, and if I go, I put my one in the Packer directory in the README, but wherever you've put yours, just go and grab it. So this is my one, and let's whiz back to Terraform, get back to the right place. Here, right. So this is step 1. So we go to the first VM, we add our AMI ID. So looking at this, so we've got a provider, which is the provider of AWS and the region that we're going to be in. Then we're setting up an AWS instance resource, and we're going to use that AMI, and that's our instance type. And you see that the actual meat of the resource, the AMI instance type, is within these curly braces, and that just says that this is the extent of our resource. And there are a lot more things you can add, but this is probably the most basic information you need to build a VM. So we save that file. Now this VM we're not going to be able to log into it because there's going to be no SSH keys on it. It doesn't run anything or do anything. It's just going to prove that we've got connectivity to AWS and that everything is working between Terraform and AWS using the access and secret key that we set up in the Packer video. So go back and watch that if you haven't done it already. So now we've had a look at this file, we've added up our key. Now we're going to do Terraform Init. So this it basically initializes Terraform in this directory, and it looks at that provider and it goes, are you AWS? It pulls down the AWS provider for us. It'd be the same if you were in Azure or GCP or another cloud platform. Excuse me. And that's just telling Terraform that we're talking to AWS, here's how to do it, and it just comes with all of that extra information. So we've done the initialization. The next step is to run a Terraform plan. So Terraform plan is just, it looks at the code, it makes sure it's going to work, as much as it can, and then it gives you this output. And it says in the plan, we're going to add one thing, we're going to change nothing, and we're going to destroy nothing, because obviously this is our first instance. And if you scroll back up, you can see that there's a whole load of information here, and we can change and use this information. So here, that's our AMI that we're using. We're using a T2 micro, and then everything else pretty much is going to get taken care of once it exists. So now we do Terraform apply, and this again runs another plan, tells you what it's going to do, and then it asks you, do you really want to do it? So it's the same plan. Let's do yes, and if we go back into the EC2 instance, that's creating, and we just refresh. So I've got a filter on here for running, so if I take that off, you can see that we now have this pending EC2 instance, and now it's running. And then if we come here, 15 seconds, that was it. All it's doing is starting up our AMI image, giving it an IP address, and saying there you go, and that's it. It doesn't do anything. So it's still initializing, but that's it. So this proves that our Terraform can connect to AWS. It's got enough privilege to create resources. We can prove it's done it because here's the new resource, and that's it. It's just a check. So we don't need this for anything. It just lets us know that it's working. It's the most basic form of code that we need to build something in AWS. So let's do a Terraform destroy, because you'll pay for this resource the same as you'll pay for any other resource in AWS. If it's on and in use, it's going to cost you money. Actually, just quickly scrolling up on the destroy, we can see that we've got a public DNS IP address, we've got a private IP address. There's a lot more information in here, like the ID it was given, and you can see that the actual availability zone, so although we're in EU West 2, the availability zone is 2C, and that's just like a micro way of splitting out resources within AWS regions. Okay, so we're going to go yes. Okay, so that's going to take that's going to destroy it. If we go back into the AWS console, we can see it's now shutting down. In a few seconds that will show terminated, and then this will give us our command line back, and we'll come here and it will be terminated. Okay, so while that's doing that, let's go back in here. So we've done the apply, we've done the destroy. Now the next step is to look at variables. So let's just double check it's dead. So it's still shutting down, still destroying. So you can see it takes longer to destroy a VM than it does to create one. There we go, so now it's terminated. So that's been destroyed. Sometimes it sort of sits there, just give it a couple of enter taps and it will give you a command line back. Right, so that's now terminated. Let's move on to step 2. So step 2 is looking at variables in Terraform. So again, this is just a very entry-level look at using variables to do exactly what we've just done, but with a variable file instead of just one instance.tf file. And this is to show that what happens is as your environment grows and you write more code, you just want people to update the variable. It's only the variable that changes, so that they can go to a vars file, make their updates that they want to make, that is going to happen in Terraform, and then leave the Terraform code alone. Just run the Terraform apply, it picks up those variables, and that's what is delivered to you. So you don't have people that necessarily need to know very much about Terraform. They just need to know what they want, what it is, and then they can have it. Okay, so let's go back to variables. So cd.space/variables, and we've got a couple of extra files. So the instance.tf, we can see here that it's using the AMI from this variable and the region, and then and based on the region, and then there's a T2 micro here. And we've also created a providers file, so provider.tf. So instead of having that in the same file as instance.tf, we've just taken it out. It's a variable again, AWS region, and it allows us to separate out our code into individual chunks, which is kind of more best practice. You don't want to get one massive long file with everything in it. That's not good practice. So the best practice is to break the resources out into separate files, and then they can be individually managed and updated and changed if required. Right, so again, there's a vars file now. So if we look in the variable file, we can see that again, we've got EC2 region. That's our variable, and that's for the region, that's our variable for the AMIs. So again, let's add this in. I didn't actually save that, so let me just go back and cat my instance file, grab the AMI from there, go back into the variables, and then from here, I'm just going to add it in and save that. So if you're using different regions, you can use different AMI keys. This is just a very simple example of how you can use that. We're just going to be using EUS2. So save that file. So there's nothing else to update. That's the beauty of variables. We now can do a Terraform Init. And that again pulls down the provider for AWS. We do a Terraform Plan, and this just shows us what it's going to do. So it will be exactly the same as before, because we haven't changed anything. All we've done is we've broken out that one file into individual resource files. See, it looks exactly the same. Now do a Terraform apply, and this will do another plan and then tell us that it's going to be adding something. So we go yes, hit the enter button, pop back here. We can see that one's terminated. This one's now pending, and it will become available. I think it took 15 seconds last time, so let's see how long that takes. 10 seconds. And 15 seconds, right. So hit enter, so we can see that that's up and running. It's still initializing, but again, there's nothing actually happening. It's not doing anything. We've just proved that we've now taken, we've extended the code by adding variables and breaking it out into separate files. So have a look at those, get familiar with them. I'm going to do a Terraform destroy, and then that does, again, it does the plan, tells us it's going to destroy the resources, and then just hit a yes. So one to destroy, then shut it down and terminate it. Okay, so while that's destroying, let's come back into step 3. So now we're going to create an Nginx web server, and we're going to be able to SSH into it. So our code's going to do a lot more this time. So we need to obviously provide the AMI ID again. We're also going to be creating an SSH key. And then that SSH key, just limited to this directory, is then going to go on and become the key that we're going to log in with and connect to our node with. And we're going to need that here. So let's go into the Nginx directory. There it is. So let's have a look at the vars file. So again, you've seen this before. That's our region. This is our AMI ID. And there's some extra variables here for an SSH key, the private and public key, and also the username. So if you were logging into a Rocky Linux or CentOS, then you would change this to probably EC2 user or CentOS, whichever one it was. If we cat the instance.tf file, we can see that it's actually creating another resource, which is an AWS key pair, which is the SSH key, and these variables refer to these ones: path to public key, path to private key. And then we have the resource. So we've got the AMI again. We've already done that before, so we've given it the AMI key, variable. It's going to be an EC2 instance, but now we're adding key name to resource as well. So we're actually going to add this key pair as well. And then we're going to use a provisioner, a file provisioner, which is going to take this script that I've written, and we'll check that in a second. It's going to do an update and an install of Nginx, and then start the service. And then this provisioner, this remote exec, runs it. It makes it executable, and then it runs it as root. And then these are the connection settings. So this is it. So checking the private key to use to log in to the public key on our remote server. So if we cat the script file, it's a simple bash script. it waits until the server is up and running, and then we install Nginx, we run the update, we run the install for Nginx, and then we make sure that the service is started. So the only file we haven't looked at is the provider.tf, and again it's exactly the same as before, just providing the region. Okay, so there's a few things we need to do. So again, let me just get the instance.tf. There we go, the AMI, so VI files, the vars file. Take this AMI ID and put it here. Okay, so there's nothing else I need to change. That is it. The only thing I need to add now is it's expecting an SSH key. So if you cat variables, it's expecting an SSH key. So if yours is in a different location, you could actually put the full path to your key and your public key here. As we follow through here, we're just going to create the thing. Okay. So let's create the SSH key. Don't put a passphrase in for now. That's worked. So we've got everything in place. So we've got the SSH key, the public and private. We've updated the variable with our AMI ID. We don't think we need to add anything else. So now we're going to attempt to connect. So before we do that, so let's run Terraform Plan, make sure that it looks at it. Oh, what have I got here? Again, because I run it every time, I hardly ever see this error. We haven't run Terraform Init to initialize and pull down the providers we need. So I'm glad we saw that. So Terraform Init, pull it down, and then run a Terraform Plan. So yeah, most of the time, just read the message. So inconsistent dependency lock file sounds a bit odd. But then when you read this, the provider registry AWS, you can go, I've not done the init, of course, and you can just run it. So now we can do Terraform Plan. Should hopefully go and look at it. This time it's different. So the server information is exactly the same as before, but we now have this new resource. You can see here it's going to add 2 resources that we're doing an AWS key pair. So it's taken our public key, it's found it, and it's going to make sure it uses that and stick that in the right place on the remote server when we create this VM. So before we do this, let's create a rule in AWS that's going to allow SSH and HTTP traffic. Okay, so I'm not put the details here. We're going to do a demo now. So we come into AWS, and then all we've got are those 2 terminated instances that we've created. If we go on the left-hand column to Network and Security Groups, and we go Create Security Group, let's call this Terraform. We'll just call it Terraform Test. You can call it what you like. We're going to refer to it, and it's going to be SSH and HTTP. And we're going to add a rule. And the first rule, again, just at the top, just do SSH, and it puts it here. Do custom, make it SSHable from anywhere, and then add another rule. This time HTTP. Just highlight that, make it anywhere IPv4. That's then added. Create the security rule. That's good. So now we're ready. So we can't add it yet because we haven't got the server. So now we're going to do the Terraform apply. This is going to go and create our resources, but until this rule exists, what I want to do is apply this rule directly to our server. So it says it's creating. So if we go to AWS, the instances, we refresh, we'll see it's now pending. So it's going to try and create it, and that bit will work absolutely fine, but it's the connection bit will fail because it cannot SSH onto the server. So that says it's running, but it's still going to be creating here. So what we do, that's my dog. We must have someone at the door. So what we do is we go into the instance, we look at the one that's running, we highlight that, and we do Actions, Security, Change Network Security Groups. And in here, we find the one we just created, Terraform Test, and we add that security group. So we can see we've got default Terraform Test, and we do save, and that's now applied. And as you watch this, we'll suddenly connect, and now everything will start to happen. There we go. So that's all done. So this will run through. Now our script was doing an update first, and then it was doing an install of Nginx. So that you can see it's doing that. Once that's happened, it's going to then start the Nginx service. So what that will mean is, we can log in ourselves. So that's all done, nice and quick. Let's just refresh. See, it's running, still initializing, but we should be able to log in now. So what we do is, in this directory, we have the SSH key. So we do SSH -i, and then -i refers to the SSH key, the private key, so SSH key, and then it's Ubuntu at, and then let's just go and get the IP address. So we could get it from the Terraform output. Actually, let's just get it from here. It's going to be quickest. So you highlight it, and then down here there's public IP address. You put the public IP address in, you press enter, you'll get this connection fingerprint. Just go yes, and now we're on our server. And that's it. So do we have curl? We do. wget? We do. Git? We do. So these are all the things that we added into our AMI, so I don't have to install them. So that makes life quick. So if we do a curl localhost, that says welcome to Nginx. So we can see the service is running. We can do a system ctl status on Nginx. You can see that it's running, so the service is up and running. It's been up for a minute and a half. If we take that same IP address and we open up a web browser and we click on here, we can see that we get the same output. So our server's up and running, it's out there onto the internet. You could set up your own web server here like this. It's very basic, it's only HTTP, so it's not safe or anything. It's just for lab and experimental sort of test purposes, and that's it. So yeah, you can now log in. We're on our remote server that we just built in AWS. We've installed Nginx. We're running a web server. We've been to the web page on the internet. Anyone can get to that now. It's there for everybody, and we can run any command. We can do anything we want from this server. We can install any software. So that is your introduction to Terraform. Have a look at the code, get familiar with it, maybe make some changes in your own time and build some new servers. I'm going to destroy this now. So Terraform destroy, because we don't need it. We're in the next exercise. We're going to I'm going to pull down some more code, which is a bit more complicated than this. It does lots of servers. It builds GitLab and Jenkins. It builds. It creates security groups. It does it automatically does the SSH key again. So it's that's what we're going to be doing soon. So yeah, subscribe. Like the video. I hope you're enjoying it so far. This is probably one of the best exercise so far, because Terraform, everybody wants to use Terraform and know how to use it, and this is just a little bit of a how-to. So yeah, join me in the next video. Thanks for being on this one. Hope everything's going okay. If you get any issues, stick them in the comments and I'll try my best to reply, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.